one of Austin's most infamous unsolved cases.
Austin Yogurt Shop.
Yogurt Shop murder.
I can't believe it's Yogurt Shop.
Yogurt Shop.
Just a quick little content warning for this piece. It does include mentions of sexual assault and murder. Today I'm going to be talking about the Austin Yogurt Shop murders. Just as a quick disclaimer, I mean no harm to anyone mentioned in this piece. I'm simply stating the facts and evidence I have found while researching this case. On December 6, 1991, 17-year-old Eliza Thomas, 17-year-old Jennifer Harbison, 15-year-old Sarah Harbison, and 13-year-old Amy Ayers were closing up the I Can't Believe It's Yogurt Shop they worked at, located at 2945 Anderson Lane. The yogurt shop was directly across the street from North Cross Mall. Eliza and Jennifer worked at the yogurt shop, and Amy and Sarah were there helping them close so they could get a ride home. The shop closed at 11 p.m. that night. Around 10 p.m., a man claims he saw a shady person standing by the counter, letting people go in front of him to order. When he finally checked out, he bought just a soda. Many people find it weird that he went to a yogurt shop just to get a soda. A couple entered the shop right before closing at 10:45. The couple claims they saw two shady men wearing big jackets in the booth right next to the register. These men were apparently not eating yogurt, just leaning over the table whispering to each other. When the couple left around 11:55, the men were the only customers left in the store. Just before midnight, Officer Torrey Gray was driving around in his patrol car when he noticed smoke coming from the yogurt shop. He immediately called the fire department, and they were on the scene within minutes. The firefighters just assumed it was a typical restaurant fire, maybe an oven had caught fire or something, so they put it out as they would any other kitchen fire. What they failed to realize was that the yogurt shop did not have an oven because it was a frozen yogurt shop. As they were putting the fire out, one of the firefighters noticed a foot and immediately notified the police department. As they continued to extinguish the flames, they discovered 3 more bodies. Detective John Jones was the first officer on scene and would take the lead in this investigation. When the police arrived, they investigated the crime scene and found Elizabeth and Sarah stacked on top of each other, while Jennifer was lying by herself close to them. Amy was found away from the other girls closer to the front of the store. All 4 girls had been undressed, bound with their own clothes, and shot in the head. They were severely burned, and 2 of the girls had signs of sexual assault. There was also $540 missing from the cash register. The police didn't know where to start with this case. 4 seemingly perfect young girls had been the victims of a brutal attack for no apparent motive other than the missing cash. But was murdering and sexually assaulting 4 young girls in a horrific manner really necessary for $540? They looked into the girls' lives for months and could not find anything even slightly bad about them. They looked into possible drug connections or enraged boyfriends, but all their searches turned up empty. A few days after the murder, a 16-year-old boy named Maurice Pierce was picked up by a patrolman at North Cross Mall carrying a .22 caliber handgun, the same type of gun that was used to murder these girls. But after testing the ballistics, they found the gun was not a match. Witnesses also say they saw Maurice Pierce in the area the night of the crime. Maurice claimed that he and 3 other friends, Robert Springsteen, Forrest Wellborn, and Michael Scott, had stolen a car and driven to San Antonio that night, so they were not even in town. The boys were let go because the police had no evidence incriminating them. In 1999, after years of no new developments, the case was handed over to a new group of detectives. These detectives focused on 4 main suspects, the 4 boys the previous team had found no evidence on. They brought Scott and Springsteen back in for questioning. These boys were questioned for hours until they finally confessed to the murder. Now, it is important to note that there was still no evidence incriminating these men. Only confessions made after long questioning from a cop who had a history of going to extreme lengths to force a confession, even if it was a false one. There were also over 50 false confessions to the murders. So who's to say that this was not another instance of that? Either way, Scott and Springsteen were sent to trial and both found guilty and given prison time. In 2009, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals overturned their convictions because their confessions were used against each other without the opportunity for cross-examination. In 2008, a partial DNA swab was taken from one of the victims and tested. This DNA did not match any of the previous suspects. The Austin Police Department sent this partial DNA sample to a database in Florida and got a match. The problem was, this sample was submitted and protected as an anonymous sample. The FBI were the only people who knew who this DNA donor was, and they would not release this information in order to protect their privacy. After years of the Austin Police Department asking the FBI and arguing that this information could solve their case, the FBI agreed to release the donor's identity. However, they decided to retest the DNA and found that it was actually not a match to the anonymous donor. As of right now, there is no new evidence and this case remains unsolved. The police believed that if they could identify the 2 males that were thought to be the last customers in this shop that night, they could solve this crime and bring the families justice. If you have any information relating to this case, you can contact the Austin Police Department Homicide Tip Line at 512-477-3588.